We have a hot tea intro. There's this stream of blood, which I guess represents the Targaryen lineage, starting from the doom of Valyria. But for the average viewer, it's just blood flowing through grey rocks. Didn't really like it. And the music sounds vaguely familiar. If any of you guys know what it's called, please let me know. I guess they thought that the Game of Thrones theme, which is iconic and familiar to almost all viewers, will bring home the idea that what we've been missing is back. This also saves them from the hard task of trying to top the original theme, but I wish they'd made the attempt. Also, with other shows in development in this universe, I don't know what they'll do with their intros. Not the best decision, I think. In the opening scene, we see crabs feeding on dead and dying men in the stepstones, thanks to Kraghas's crab feeder, as we soon learn. In the small council meeting, we learn Sir Ryam Redwine, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, has died. He has to be replaced by a new knight to complete the 7 of the Kingsguard. Lord Corlys Velaryon walks in, angry at the king for not fighting Kraghas crab feeder and his pirates on the stepstones, who are hindering trade, with Corlys being affected by it the most. Otto tells Corlys to behave, and Viserys tells him that he's sent envoys to Pentos and Volantis for help in the situation. Rhaenyra wants Viserys to send dragon riders, including herself, to fight. To this, Otto suggests that Rhaenyra might busy herself elsewhere, so Viserys asks her to make the Kingsguard appointment. We also learn from Corlys that Daemon has gone to Dragonstone with an army of gold cloaks, but I'll talk about this when we get to a later scene. At the Kingsguard choosing, we have some very unnecessary, extravagant toys to depict the houses of each knight presented. I guess Rhaenyra is a visual learner, but the banners are nice. We learn that Criston Cole is in fact not Dornish, but from the Dornish marches in the Stormlands. I guess George was right. Rhaenyra chooses Criston Cole because he's the only one of the knights with real combat experience, and not because I want to marry him. Otto advises against this, but she does it anyway. These two scenes show a power struggle between Otto, the seasoned, powerful master manipulator, and Rhaenyra, the young heir coming into her own. Rhaenys watches the choosing from a balcony. Viserys is talking about Valyria with Alicent and breaks a stone dragon from his model. They then talk about Rhaenyra and the lack of communication between her and Viserys. Alicent encourages Viserys to reach out to Rhaenyra. Alicent and Viserys seem to have grown quite close in the 6 months that have passed since the last episode, and Viserys tells her not to talk about their meetings with Rhaenyra because she wouldn't understand. Viserys clearly feels guilty about courting Rhaenyra's friend and is afraid of what she would say if she found out about it. Rhaenyra and Alicent go to the Sept. Rhaenyra complains about the men in the small council undermining her. Of course, Alicent's father, Otto, is chief among them, and is using his daughter to indirectly harm Rhaenyra's claim to the throne by producing more heirs. Rhaenyra also says that she wants Viserys to see her as an adult. Alicent manipulates Rhaenyra into reaching out to her father. Although there is no malice in this by any means, it does give a nod to Alicent's scheming skills. Corlys and Rhaenys meet the king and offer him their 12-year-old daughter Laena's hand in marriage. This is quite different from the books, where Laena's parents make no such offer, but Viserys is merely expected to marry her, and when he doesn't, the parents take offense. But I suppose in the books, Corlys and Rhaenys don't even live in King's Landing. The show takes a more direct approach, and I like it. Viserys and Rhaenyra have dinner. They try to talk about Aemma and the small council meeting, but it doesn't go anywhere, with Rhaenyra still adamant on her point, and Viserys just ending the conversation abruptly by saying that she is young and will learn. The cut on Viserys' finger has worsened, and now the finger is rotting and being treated with maggots. With his hand in a bowl of maggots, Viserys informs Otto and Grand Maester Mellos of the marriage proposal made by Corlys, and Otto says that Corlys is overreaching, which is just false. Laena Velaryon belongs to the richest house in Westeros, is of Valyrian blood, and her father has the largest navy in Westeros. It's a perfect match politically, as Lionel Strong will tell Viserys later. Some looks are exchanged between Mellos and Otto, and they proceed to play good cop, better cop to manipulate Viserys. Then we have this courtship scene. Viserys is uncomfortable and Laena is sweet and very interested in dragons, particularly the fucking huge ones, Balerion and Vhagar. Laena recites some words about strengthening the royal line as dictated by Corlys, which shows us how straightforward this guy is, unlike Otto. Laena also tells Viserys that her mother told her she wouldn't have to consummate the marriage till she turned 14. This just emphasizes how young she is to Viserys, and shows us that Rhaenys is mindful of how this political maneuver affects her daughter. Which brings us to this scene. Rhaenys asks Rhaenyra if the king courting Laena bothers her. Rhaenyra refuses to take the bait and asks Rhaenys the same question. Rhaenys says that of course it bothers her, but this is how it goes, and proceeds to give a reality check to Rhaenyra about the inherent misogyny in the patriarchal system they live in. This is a scene rich in subtext. Rhaenys, on the one hand, is educating Rhaenyra and imploring her to be pragmatic because she feels empathy for her. But on the other hand, she maybe feels jealous and is bitter about being passed over at the Great Council, and now can't see the rules change for this other woman. This is an example of how women can come to hate other women in a patriarchy. Rhaenys also feels competitive because Viserys is expected to take her daughter to wife, and Rhaenyra may come to compete against Rhaenys' grandchildren for the throne in the future. There's a lot going on. It's a great scene. Alicent and Viserys share a conversation about him marrying a kid, and Alicent gives him a mended toy. Something's brewing. Otto walks in. He takes Viserys to the council chamber where a dragon keeper informs the king about Daemon stealing a dragon egg. If I were a semi-monk living under Targaryen rule, I wouldn't call the king's brother a thief though. At least not without feeling him out first. There's a letter from Daemon in which he calls himself Prince of Dragonstone and rightful heir to the Iron Throne. He also lies about taking a second wife, Mysaria, and her being pregnant, and that the dragon egg will be placed in the baby's cradle. All this and the fact that Daemon has an army of gold cloaks that he took with him, guards essentially from the king's city, he is basically rebelling against the crown. Here again, the show doesn't meander like the book and just goes hard. Viserys still doesn't want to take any action despite the urging of his council, until he learns that the egg Daemon took was his dead child's. Viserys then wants to go himself to bring Daemon to justice, but Otto convinces Viserys to send him instead. Before he leaves for Dragonstone, Alicent helps Otto with his cloak and he sees the marks on her hands from nail-picking. Otto then says that she's the most beautiful girl at court and she's destroying herself with the nail-picking. So Otto is mainly worried about this habit of Alicent's because it lessens her value to him as a tool to gain power. He then reinforces this by asking Alicent if she'll visit Viserys tonight. Alicent says, if you wish it. Otto and Daemon meet. Quite a pleasant meeting, actually. Daemon and Sir Crispin share a hearty laugh, but the great banter comes to an end when Otto threatens Mysaria and her imaginary unborn child. The goodest of boys shows up. I just love him. Just look at him. And he also sounds like the cute, fucked up demon he is. Otto realizes his plan was dumb as he sees Caraxes ready to go, and orders his men to put away their weapons. Then Rhaenyra pulls up on Syrax, chastises and emasculates Daemon, inadvertently exposes his lies to Mysaria, takes the egg, and puts Otto in his place in the process. Good writing, acting, directing, great cinematography. Just a well-done scene. Afterwards, Mysaria confronts Daemon, and from her accent, she must be from the same place Preston Jacobs' Dario Naharis is from. Mysaria tells Daemon that she can't live in fear while Daemon tries to get the king's attention. Then we have the scene with Viserys and Lionel Strong. And surprisingly, Lionel is honest, apparently unbiased, and gives Viserys the good political advice of accepting Corlys' proposal. I think Lionel can be an interesting character going forward. Then they are interrupted by a steward, who informs Viserys of what Rhaenyra did at Dragonstone. Viserys is angry at first, but proud later, and says Rhaenyra is like her mother, and the two finally have an honest conversation about Aemma. Viserys calls Rhaenyra a woman grown. They talk about Viserys' need to remarry, and Rhaenyra understands, except she doesn't know who he's going to marry. At the small council meeting, Viserys announces that he'll marry Alicent, and thus pisses off Corlys, whose daughter he spurned, and Rhaenyra, who feels betrayed by both her father and her best friend. They both leave in a huff. At Driftmark, Corlys and Daemon meet, and there are these strange artifacts there which presumably came from the Sea Snake's voyages. A nice little detail. Corlys gives some exposition about House Velaryon, and then he says something about the king, and Daemon takes offense, showing the complicated relationship between the brothers. Corlys says that Daemon can prove his worth by going to war with him on the Stepstones. Anyway, here's the big baddie, Grughouse Catfeeder. Hope he's not too cartoonish. I like this episode a lot. A lot of character development, Rhaenyra, Alicent, Otto, Daemon, Viserys, Corlys, Rhaenys, all were more fleshed out, and I'm happy with some of the changes they made from the book. Without spoiling anything, all I can say is I'm very excited for the coming episodes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos about House of the Dragon, The Rings of Power, which is coming out soon, and more. Cheers.